Good afternoon. Welcome to C&T Collectibles. I am C, and today we're going to do our chart blast, our This Week in Baseball charts review. We've got about 20 names, mostly baseball, but we've mixed in a few other sports as well because everyone looks at other sports. I think there's other opportunities rather than baseball at the moment here, but we'll try and point those out to you. But first, we're going to start off with a little bit of bubble talk because we get a lot of videos out there right now that are talking about bubbles and things of that nature, and are we in one? And the key is whether we're in one or whether we're not in one. When you are in a bubble, there's a lot of money to be made. So be sure to take advantage of this. And so this is the long-term chart of the Nasdaq, and this is the tech bubble. And you can see that there was a very, very big collapse. You got a recovery, and then you've got this long-term uptrend here. So are we in a bubble? We might be right now, but sitting out that bubble hasn't made a lot of sense because there's been a lot of money made. So one of the things you need to look at real quick here is the federal money supply here, and you can see that the amount of money at the Federal Reserve. This is what the thing you want to look at here. How much money is coming into the economy, and there's a big spike here. So a massive amount of money, $4 trillion up to 18 trillion or $18 trillion has entered the economy, and so yeah, that's a bubble. If that comes out, then everything collapses. Now, what we're seeing that's different this time in 2000, the tech bubble was kind of smashed, but you had a lot of other things that worked just fine. You had a lot of value stocks, international stocks, emerging market stocks, bonds that did all right. So the key is, because a bubble pops doesn't mean that everything fails at the same time. There are things that are working. And so that is what I'm going to endeavor to do today, is show you some things that are at least interesting and help you manage your risk on things that maybe are a little bit extended. So yeah, let's just jump right in and take a look and listen. If there are any signs of a bubble, I'll be sure to let you know here. So all right, we're starting off as always with Mike Trout. Long-term uptrend is in play here. We're looking at the 2014 area as kind of a rhyming time for what's happening right now here. Top of the range, bottom of the range, breakout and retest. So top of the range, bottom of the range, breakout and a retest. So we said stay away from this. And a lot of low volume here. It's going to come back to a certain level, and we had this area targeted. 2 weeks ago, we slapped a strong buy on it. We didn't see a lot of buying step up at the time last week. I'm like, what's going on here? There's a huge divergence between this PSA 10, which is $4,780 at the current time, and the PSA 9, which was about $2,200, and now it's dipped to $1,900. So as expected, the PSA 9 is coming back down into a little bit, starting to normalize a little bit at a lower price level, but that still implies about a $5,700 PSA 10, which I think happens here. So really, you can see that the Mike Trout PSA 10 is really starting to hold this line here, starting to move up just a little bit. So this week we are seeing that buying come in, which is a very good sign overall. So Mike Trout PSA 10 relative to the PSA 9, pretty strong buy, or the PSA 9 is a sell. But I think with the volume that's coming here, you're starting to see this curl up a little bit. I would go with the 10 in this case here. So your patience has been rewarded. Ignore that. Wait for it to come back. Here's your target area, and we're starting to see some buying pick up here. All right, Luis Robert. We skipped him last week. Kind of funny. We did the PSA 8 94 SP Alex Rodriguez foil, and the thing dropped like a rock. And it actually dropped back down. It was at $50, went for like $200. And said, you know what? That's BS, ignore it, and it's come back down to that $50 level, and then someone came in and pushed it right back up to $150. So it's like, all right, what's going on here? But yeah, ignore it. So anyways, Luis Robert, this is the Chrome, and you can see that we've got a pretty defined lower boundary here and an upper boundary, and it's right in the middle of the range here. Momentum looks good, so I think it's at least interesting. I think one of the things we talk about in finance is buy the rumor, sell the news. And so right now, baseball is in rumor phase with the spring training. You don't know what to do with the stats or anything like that. It's like, all right, is this guy believable? Is this not? There's a lot of hype. And then in a couple of weeks, we're going to have, excuse me here. All right, I forget where I was, but anyways, momentum is curling up, and buy the rumor, sell the news. So if Luis Robert starts doing something in the season, excellent defensive skills. Obviously, he's got a lot of power. If he can start putting that together, then you can see his move back to the top of the range. Previous moves to the top of the range have happened on low volume, so it brings it back down to the bottom of the range here. So again, we're kind of in the middle. Not much to do here. Ideally, you'd want to wait for a move back down into this area on the Chrome. So we'll see what happens here. But there's enough buying in here. People are getting prepped for him to get off to a hot start and see what happens. But the trend is slowly creeping up. And right now, not much to do, I suppose, with that card here. Mookie Betts. This is the PSA 9. And you can see that the trend is up, but he's starting to kind of sneak below that, which is not a great sign overall here. The PSA 10 is $810. The PSA 9 is $306. So the PSA 9 is overvalued. This should probably be in the $260, $270 range here. So we'll see how this kind of plays out here. You had this consolidation and a nice measured move up to that area, and it's starting to come off again. So this is not a great sign for this card here. Now, Mookie Betts is a terrific player. I imagine he will have an awesome season, and you can see this this card coming up again. But I think you just see a lot of money coming out of a lot of baseball cards here at this point here. So they're flowing into Mike Trout maybe, but they're coming out of Mookie, and maybe it comes back down into this area here. So we'll see what happens. That's roughly 200 and maybe $25 or something like that. So anyways, Mookie Betts. I don't know if I'd do a whole lot with them at this time here. Just a little too much too quick. Well, not really. It was a lot of buying. It was consistent. But the trend on that one, at least in the short term, is down. So we'll see how that plays out. Eloy Jimenez, my boy Eloy Jimenez. A lot of sideways action here. Seeing the trend is up, and it's held this. It had a quick move here on very low volume. So expecting, coming back down this trend line is kind of expected here. Now, if he does what I think he's going to do, White Sox will be a good team. He's going to hit 285. He's going to hit 40 home runs. We could see him break out of this. And so what I need to start doing is I need to do better here. All right. I need to start putting some price targets on these things. Mathematical price targets, not what I feel. So I can blame it on the math, not me. But when guys, I only do this once a week. And if something happens in the early part of the week or over a weekend, you're going to miss it. So, chalk these down. But this is a compression, and should it break out, then we are looking at prices. These are Fibonacci extensions, $120, $127, $135. So we'll see if he can get into that 120 to 135 area if he is able to break out. And it would probably be a very quick move on low volume, and this would be worth selling if that's what you're into on Eloy Jimenez. But yeah, that breakout should bring it up to here, and it would be it'd be worth it for you to probably sell that as it comes back into this area here to kind of break out that $100 area. So it's percentage wise, it's decent. Dollar wise, it's a couple of beers a night out, but I'm in the long term. I'm not going to sell. I'm a big believer in Eloy, and so. But if you are looking for those quick hits, let's try and help you out as well here. So here's your price targets on that one. Robert Acuna, downtrend is still intact. We had that what was it, 200 and $250, $260 or something like that. So this area here to hit that, and it's coming off a bit here. There's a lot of buying in this area here, so I think you can see a lot of sideways action. Now, if he comes out and all of a sudden he goes 40-40, best player in baseball, yeah, it busts out and makes it at least back up to that $300 area here. So there's a lot of cards that have met or exceeded their Gary V pump price from last summer. So Acuna hasn't yet, so I think there's value there. Not anything as exciting as it was back in this area when we were, kind of pounding the table a little bit. But I don't think it leaks a whole lot lower than this area here. So $205 on the PSA 10, $61 on the PSA 9. There's still some upside value on the PSA 9. Was looking for, this was kind of my initial target. $85 is kind of the secondary if this card makes it back up to the high level there. So there's a little bit more relative value in the PSA 9. Momentum is relatively flat, so I think you see a lot of grinding until he does something, which I think he does, but who cares what I think. So Juan Soto, uptrend is intact, top of the range, bottom of the range. Snuck out of the top of the range, and usually you're going to get quick moves back to the bottom here. And so it's holding this line, holding in this area pretty nicely. We'll see if it, again, there's a lot of buying here, so I don't know that it, in that $300 area, I don't know that it really sneaks below. Now, if Juan Soto does what he does next year, and 200 WRC plus season, that hasn't really happened over a complete season since Barry Bonds, and if he is able to do something like that, that would be absolutely insane. And so our first target on this breakout from this $300 area here, your high, your low, and we're looking at something in that, probably that 360 to 370 range, and it got to $380, so we're pretty close. And I think that this area here, that 430 area, could come into play. I think there were a couple transactions in that area, but they got undone by eBay or something like that. So as long as it holds this and he gets off to a decent start, you could start to curl back up and revisit at least that 380 area and maybe that 430 area above that. So we'll kind of see how it plays out. But I think you've got this different trend channel that can play. But for now, It's an interesting spot because there's a lot of buying and there's a lot of support in this area here. So if you're looking for it, a lot of people are there with you. So, all right, Fernando Tatis. When I did this a couple weeks ago, said, you know what, it was in this area and said, maybe there's a little bit more downside, but we're kind of in an area where enough people have been buying that we could see a pickup in purchases, and one person or two people thought, sure, yeah, that's the thing to do, and brought them right back up to all-time highs. It's like, come on, people, what's going on here? Low volume again, let that go, and now it's kind of in this this area here where it's a little bit of no man's land, I suppose. But again, I think people are looking for Tatis to be a top 3 player. His cards are priced like he's going to be a top 3 player, so it's a little bit tricky. He needs to be a top 3 player to sustain this price, I suppose. And if he doesn't do that, then you could drop a little bit further. But should he turn out to be a top 3 player, you've got kind of this area here where you've got your top and your bottom, and you've got price extensions of upwards of $380 to $400. So I think he got to $360. So pretty close here. So could see a little bit higher if it goes to the bottom of the range and comes back up. Then you've got your 380 price target, and then ultimately a little over 400. So right now his PSA 10 is $300. His PSA 9 is $95. So there's no advantage to either on that one. But again, for Tatis, the trend is up, and there's a ton of buying in this area here. So I think if you're looking for a high grade condition of that card, you're probably okay. There's maybe there's a little bit more downside, but there's probably some upside as well. So tread lightly. But if you've got a stimulus check you need to get rid of, this is a decent spot to maybe leak in just a little bit here. All right, we did third baseman this week. Our top 5 third basemen for 2021. Rafi Devers came in at number 5. And, your price is trending down and broke out. And so a lot of low volume buying here. So great time to take profits, I suppose, if you want to. But I'm a long-term believer in Rafi. And then they immediately came back down. So, these moves are usually given up. So no surprise on that one here. So back into an area where there's been a decent amount of buying. And again, if you're looking for a high grade Rafi, this is a pretty decent area, though the trend is down. So, but we're also talking about $50 or $60. And if it goes to 40, it's not the end of the world probably. So a lot of buying in this area here, but it's firming up a little bit. So it could leak a little bit lower, or it could go higher, but I don't know. It only takes one person to kind of figure that one out. And if it was me, then I'd probably be buying here. I like Rafi, but in this area there's a decent amount of buying. So, but again, the point is these light, low volume moves, you stay away because they'll return to where they were before. So don't chase. So don't chase waterfalls and don't chase Rafi Devers. All right, Nolan Arenado, just outside of our top 5 for this year, and that's mostly because his 2020 was really, really bad. And I don't believe that will be the case longer term, but he does need to, with a bad 2020 and going to a new park in 2021, he's going to have to prove it before he starts leapfrogging guys like, Devers and Machado and Bregman and all that kind of stuff. So you just prove it a little bit, my friend. All right, so lots of buying in this area here, and then he gets traded and goes to the top of the range, and it's like, you know what, that's too fast because there's not a lot of price support in this area. And then it came down, and there's a decent amount of buying here, and then now you're at the bottom of the range here. So if you're looking for an Arenado, it seems like a decent spot to do it. The trend is down, so I'd say it's a little bit of caution. But this area has seen buying in the past, and so it seems like a decent spot to do it for at least a pop. But I mean, this is a guy that I think over the long term is well on a Hall of Fame track, and under $200 for a player like that is probably a decent deal overall. So what's going on here? Sure, computer, I'll move my screen for you, I guess. Alex Bregman, why are you so tiny? This is crazy. I cut and pasted very horribly on this one, apparently, and I can see that on my other screen right now. We'll just deal with what we're doing here. So, Alex Bregman, number 2 on my third baseman. The trend is up, top of the range, coming off just a little bit here, and probably makes his way down just a little bit more. So, a little too much too quick. $100, maybe it makes it way back down to, we'll call it like 80 or something like that. But again, I'm just a long-term believer in Alex Bregman, and while the trend is up, then you buy. So hopefully you get back down to that area here, and it might just go sideways to get there. But overall, I think that's a solid purchase. I'm going to pause while I go to the next screen here because I'm guessing that's going to correct itself as this one was a little bit wonky. Gotta fire that editor. All right, Manny Machado, a lot of sideways action here. We liked him a lot in this area. And he quickly moved up to this spot here and said, all right, going to come back to this area. He kind of did that. And then he broke out. And another monster move here on light volume, and now he's just kind of consolidating this area. So as long as he stays above this $110 range, I think we're all right. So the trend, at least in the intermediate term, near term, is down. But again, this is a guy that is really, really on a solid long-term Hall of Fame track and should probably be upwards of $180, $200. So San Diego, Tatis, all those things kind of going for him. I think you could see that out of him this year. But in the near term, you may get another shot here. And if you can get it for $100, $110, then take a strong look at Manny Machado, my number 3, and it could easily be number 2 third baseman for the season. But I think on a Hall of Fame track for third baseman, easily number 1. So, all right, Jose Ramirez wrap up the third baseman here. Not a lot of buying of this card here, which is criminal. Best third baseman in the league here. So not a lot of buying, but it's hanging around its all-time highs, and there's not a lot of cards right now that can say that. So I think he's just really, really underrated here. So $80 to $90 for a guy that the best third baseman in the league, top 5 MVP 3 of the last 4 years. I mean, he should be a lot more. So there's not a lot of players I'm buying at the current time, but Jose Ramirez, Nolan Arenado, those are Ozzy Albies. Those are some of the ones that I'm looking at whenever I see them. If it's a deal, then I'm doing that here. So all right, get into some fun stuff here. A couple guys are having great spring training. Shoyatani, downtrend breakout, going nuts here. So he's 27, maybe 28 years old. Not on a Hall of Fame track. His pitching looks a little shaky, but he hit a really big home run, so that's worth going from $40 to $100. So. Because he had a big spring training home run. So overall, whoa, all right, I don't know what happened on that one here. I did something, but that was kind of a cool effect. I have to learn how to do that intentionally, I think. So low volume, so don't do anything. If he starts screwing up in the midseason, you're back down to $40, $50 cards. So Shoyatani, leave it alone. All right. We're already on to Michael Jordan. I don't think I wanted to do him that quickly here, but we're going to because we're here, PSA 8. So we got to the top of the range here and said, you know what, that's probably, I even did a video on this, did the bubble just break? And yeah, it did. So it continues to trend down, looking for something in this area here, and this might be close enough. So the starting point is around $7,300 and the ending point is around $4,100. So we'll look at our extensions. And I've never really had to go up to a 685% extension before. But yeah, darn near nailed it. So 26,100 was the higher mark. So just by looking at this, just the eyeball test in general, saying, low volume, just leave it and come back to an area where there's a lot of buying. So we are seeing that right now. It hasn't quite broken out yet, but if you're looking for a nice Jordan example, this is kind of your area, and we're kind of here. So buying is picking up just a little bit. Again, hasn't broke out, but if you're looking for one, then look harder. All right. Bobby Witt. Yeah, that's the one I wanted next. Spring training, guys. So just absolutely, he looks great. He's going to be a terrific player, I imagine. So these cars have been traveling kind of sideways. Decent range here, $50 to $200. And there's been some buying up here, but there's a big gap in this area here. So if it starts to leak back into this area, there's no one willing to step in to buy. And so this thing could return down to that level. I don't think I would do much with this card at this time because what you want from players is relevance. And, well, he's having a great spring training. That's pretty darn relevant. So I would say avoid for now. All right, couple basketball players. I don't even remember who I put down here. So Tyler Herro. And basketball, I think, has one of the better relative values of all the sports cards right now because they just got absolutely whacked. You had these big moves, and then they just kind of moved down. And now you see this nice consolidation down here where a lot more buyers are stepping in than you had up here. And so you could see players like this. I don't know the playoff picture or anything like that. There's people that are going to be better at picking that out than me. But as far as giving you some ups and downs, maybe I do all right with that one. So right here, so you've got your upside in this area right here, call it $80 or something like that, and your downside right around 50. And so there's plenty of buying in this range here. And maybe if he does something ever, I don't know if he will, then you could see this bust out. But again, a lot of hype around him up in here, and now you're starting to see a lot of buying and accumulation. And if it does break up, then because people are so interested, maybe you see him chase just a little bit here. So, all right, we would have Kevin Porter Jr. kind of the opposite. You had a downtrend that was broken and shot right up. A lot of low volume purchases right here. A lot of people interested in here. Very few people here they're chasing, and that's not a good sign overall. So I think you could see him come back down decently, right around $700. I mean, if it came back down to $400, $300, that certainly wouldn't surprise me at all. So, and I think we're finishing up with Luka Doncic, and so pointed out a couple weeks ago, like, a lot of buying in here, had this big run up, and there's buying on the way down, but not a buying in here, and all of a sudden you had a purchase below this line, and that's a problem overall. So, unless you can get some buying to kind of bring it back up in this area here, I mean, this guy can come back down to $1,000. So, again, I don't know if it's a playoff thing or whatever, but this is to start leaking below this area, you have all these people now that are underwater. That's a lot of people underwater. They may start trying to take some profits, and you could start seeing this level and say if things really go to shit, then you're looking at $500. I don't know if that's the case right now, but it looks like next stop could be right in this area, right around that $1,000 area, and at $1,200, that's not too unheard of. And so, all right, last one here, Booker. Consolidation overall, and kind of the middle of the range, right around $1,000. So we'll see what happens on this one. He's got his top of the range pretty well defined, bottom of the range pretty well defined, and so he's kind of sitting in the middle. But the shorter term trend is up, and so the aggressive person would buy here, and the next person that and they could try and sell it, and the next person might offer this price, and it just goes way down. But you've got a pretty defined range. You're kind of in the middle of it. If he does something newsworthy or has a good playoff, then you could see this thing kind of peak up just a little bit. So anyways, who knows what happens, but I can define the risk. It's kind of up to you to manage it. I'll try and help you out a little bit, but anyways, hope this was at a minimum, hope this was entertaining, and have a great weekend. Take care. Bye now.